There's that one. She's sick.
Okay, the video is starting.
What's up with Teresa?
Sorry, Ryan.
Okay, this is
No.
a talk which preparing for the Nichols family because their grandchildren want to know about their ancestors. I don't know about the Nichols. James is an expert on that, but I know about his mother's side of the family because James and I are related through our mothers. James' mother and my mother were sisters. So I know that.
My mother too.
So I know that side of the family. And so both of our grandparents,
Excuse me? Did you just say
James and
enough?
mine,
You need your shoes.
were
You
from
can't go out
Lebanon.
with
They were
wet
immigrants
socks.
from
Do you know
Lebanon.
where your shoes are? Are they on the porch?
My grandmother was Saad
Do you
Ahab,
want me to make signs for these?
and my grandfather was in Arabic Yusuf ibn
Is that
Jurjus.
yes?
It's important to know those names because when they came
Take
from
off
Lebanon
your socks and
in
then you can
the
go out and
late
find your
19th
shoes
and
without
early
your socks
20th
getting all
century,
wet.
that is prior
Take
to
your
World
socks
War I, Lebanon was part of the Ottoman Empire, which was based in what we now call Turkey, Istanbul, was the capital. And they did not use surnames for anyone. No, the only family with a surname in the Ottoman Empire legally was the Ottoman family, Osmani. And so everyone else, they would have their passports, like my grandmother on her passport, she was Saada bint Yusuf. That's Saada, the daughter of Joseph. And my grandfather, his passport, or whatever they called it back then, they had to have, he was Yusuf ibn Jurjus, that Joseph is the son of George. But but they all knew their family names, and so they had them. But that's what's on there, and that's what they got. And by the time they were coming, when the first Lebanese came in like the 1880s, they didn't necessarily know what any of these were, but by 1900, the people in charge of immigration at Ellis Island and the other places, Boston, or every place they came in, they would have had translation, so they know that Yusuf was Joseph, they know Jurgis was John. They had no idea what Sada was, so they just assumed that any woman with the name Sada was Sadie, and any woman with the name Latifah, such as your grandmother, was a Lottie, because there was no Latifah, they didn't know what those names meant. So it was a little bit arbitrary, and that's what they got for names, and they sort of just have to accept them. So my grandmother, Sada, which everyone in the community called her, was to the English-speaking world Saint.
Yeah.
And you had two grandmothers named
Named
Latifah.
Latifah, yeah.
So they were
both
called
of mine.
Lottie
Yep,
by
yep.
the English people,
And
speaking
that's my
people,
middle
where they
name.
had to work.
Yeah.
And then the other name they didn't know was Said. Your grandfather was Said Carter. But for some reason, they decided
Oh.
that Said was Charles.
Was
And everyone
Charles.
who had the name
Yeah.
Said gets Charles as
Grandfather
their
was
American
Charles.
name. I think Said might make Deer or something. Deer one, and maybe Charles. That's that.
I don't know.
I don't know
That's-
how.
Yeah, how that
I don't know
came,
how the immigration people come up.
ended up with, yeah, interesting, okay.
Some of them are
Some
obvious, they're
history.
just direct translations, and others aren't.
Yeah, yeah.
I have pictures in here. My grandfather, actually your grandfathers, both of them came very early. The George, your grandfather George would have been Suleiman in Arabic, Suleiman ibn Yusuf. And so Suleiman translates this to Solomon.
Oh, okay. All right.
And that name is pronounced Suleiman in
That's-
Lebanese Arabic.
Oh, that's where Simon came from then?
Yeah, that's what Simon comes from. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Uh,
I used
and
to hear them say
Suleiman, and the
Suleiman.
English people would hear Suleiman, which they couldn't pronounce. And it became Simon very
Sure.
quickly in the factory.
Yeah,
So that's how that happened. But the full name was Suleiman in Arabic, and the Lebanese pronunciation of Suleiman is Suleiman, even to this day. But the classical Arabic would be Suleiman, and the English translation is Solomon for that. So he came, and then your grandfather, he came from the village of Ramat. Most of the people who settled in Lebanon came from one of 20 villages which surround the town of Jazin. And the map that I wanted to print out didn't print out until I got 10 blank pages saying, press this to print map. But I had gone away to
It's
do
only as
something
good-
before
yeah.
the blank pages came out.
that's all right.
So, then I was mad, and but that showed Jazin. It's
Yeah,
sort of not complete. It's the south of Lebanon, the north end of the south of Lebanon.
right,
It would be,
yeah, yeah,
but not north. And there are 20 villages around there. Now, the George brothers came from a little village called Ramat. Your grandfather Carter came from a village called Malik, which would be north of Jazin. Ramat is a little bit south of
okay,
Jazin.
yeah,
So they were 20 of those different villages. And your grandmother, I don't think she came from Malik. She may have, but I think, for some reason, I think she came from a village called Mapriya.
oh, I don't know.
I
heard
have
that
that
name,
written
but-
down in a file, which I put on because I have so much on my computer, most of these files are on flash drive, and I couldn't find the flash drive last night with
Yeah,
all my Arabic, where they came from and their name. But I think that she came separately with two brothers. She had an older brother, Tanus, translates as Thomas,
yeah,
and a younger brother, which I don't know if James is in Arabic, but it translates as James into English. So her younger brother was James, or Jimmy as they called him, and Jimmy George, and her older brother was Thomas George. And so we have those two, we have the two grandfathers, and your grandmother and my grandmother. My grandmother's, her mother was Matilda Jabba, and the Jabbas, I'm not sure if the Jabbas lived in Mapriya or Mashdushi. I think it could have been the Hobbs that lived in Mashdushi rather than the Jabbas. Anyway, she married Yusuf Hobbs.
James may know because he went there.
Yeah.
And I think he said he saw the hard name all over the place, so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
might be
That
where.
was a big family.
Yeah, I didn't go there, but he did.
The Hobb family was somewhat prominent because they were, most of the people were farmers, but the Hobb family was sort of educated.
Right,
And, one
that's
of
what I
them was
remember, yeah.
One of them, I think maybe the father of Yusuf Hobb or the grandfather had been a doctor. And they sort of had a lot of land there. And my sister talks about it because she was there until she left when she was 13.
So she would
So she
remember.
had sort of
Yeah.
strong
He said
memory.
one was a doctor.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember I
What she
too.
liked
Yeah.
about it, she should always talk about the mashmouche, the apricot tree. She
Yeah.
always loved apricots because of that.
Yeah,
Her father died when she was about 6. There was a typhoid epidemic, Yusuf Hab, and their baby son, Maroon, died in that typhoid epidemic. And leave it until the Jabba Hab is a widow. And maybe 2 years after he died, her brother, who had gone to America, comes back with a wife, a Lebanese woman he met and married in Millinocket. Millinocket was one of the places where a lot of the Lebanese went to get training. To do what? Because they needed, the jobs in Waterville was established factory, and they paid, like the cotton mill paid, like 7 cents an hour instead of 5 cents an hour.
So it was, they needed to, yeah, wow.
And then the new paper company in Millinocket was paying like 8 cents an hour.
Wow. To work in,
But the one in Waterville, Winslow was paid 11 cents an hour, and that's where they wanted to work. So they would go, so not just the ones who settled in Waterville, but all of the South guys would go to get training. And when like, and one of the best place to work would have been like the mill, that mill across the river.
Hollingsworth and
Whitney, that then made specialized paper.
Yeah.
And so they were paying 11 cents an hour. The other place was the woolen mill, the Wyandotte, which opened around 1900, and it made this fine wool for men and women's winter coats, for men's suits. They had clients in England, and where most woolen mills only made blankets in Maine. This was making that fine, and so you had to be an experienced weaver to operate these looms.
Yeah.
And so what they would do, they'd go to the other towns to learn how to weave so they could get those jobs.
Yeah.
And so when my grandmother came, her mother and stepfather were living in Madison,
Oh, okay.
which was a lower mill. There were a number of people who lived there. And actually, my great-grandmother had gone up to Millinocket to work when she first came, because she needed to get skill as a weaver. And that's where she met Charles Stevens, and they got married. And when he proposed to her, her condition was that he had to bring her 3 children from Lebanon.
From Lebanon.
He
I
agreed
heard
with
that.
that.
Yeah.
So they got married in 1910, I believe, in Millinocket. And then the great-grandparents moved to Waterville, and they both had the experience. And he got the job in the paper mill in Waterville, which was paying 5 cents more per hour than the one in Millinocket.
That was
They
a
knew
lot,
what they were
for
doing.
sure.
And
Yeah.
she had trained there, and she could look at the wall.
Yeah.
I have a picture of her. Since I have a picture of hers, you tell me, you will probably have the same one.
I have a picture of grandmother.
I've seen that picture before.
Yeah, that's their wedding picture.
Yeah.
That's my grandfather, the young man.
Yeah.
That's another wedding picture. That was her bridesmaid and
Yeah.
lawn, and that Rosie with Edie. And so it was her sister who left in the 20s, married Lebanese. I want to say
That's
Wall
Shiddu's.
River, a sister of my grandmother.
Shiddu Situ. Does that make sense? Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Sick.
And that's your father's grandfather,
Yeah.
one of them.
Yeah. Your Shiddu's grandfather. That's one of his grandfathers. Yep.
And
What
that's
is
my
his Shiddu's?
grandmother too. That one was thinking Madison, was Madison. So they got married, she married Simon Stevens, and the first one they brought over was her oldest brother, Assad, who was the name. I didn't know what Assad meant, so they arbitrarily gave him the name of Michael. When he got to Ellis Island, and his
didn't
father
know.
was
Yeah,
Joseph, so he
changed
became
all
Michael
the names.
Joseph.
I know, it's funny, but it's also really sad.
That's-
It's sad.
really
That's my
sad.
uncle
that they
Usset's,
changed their
working at the
names.
mill.
Yeah,
And there he is in
Look at
his World
him.
War I uniform.
he always looked the same, like I remembered him so much older, of course, right?
Yeah, without his
Because-
hair.
But his face, that's what he looked like. Yeah, they lived everybody lived on him.
And that's, my grandfather, he was one of the founders of Lebanese, these are the people who founded the Lebanese Society.
Yeah.
But that's Massoud
What's with
Nasrallah.
that?
This is how
Oh,
your
Nasrallah,
father, my
okay.
grandfather and your grandfather got here. Massoud Nasrallah was their uncle on the mother's side. Their mother was a Nasrallah,
Really?
Ajni Nasrallah.
Okay.
And so he's the one who got
Who
the
got
George
them.
brothers
Wow.
into work in
I
the mill.
didn't really know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that is Jimmy George,
I know Jimmy.
Sid
George.
Ducata's younger brother.
Oh, okay.
And he married Karima Azar.
Oh, amazing. Okay. Karina.
Carrie, they called her. It was
Yeah.
Karima, and she was the brother, or the sister of
Really? Okay.
Simon.
Okay.
Not Simon. What was Millie's husband's name?
He does
Um,
it.
Karen.
Karam Azar.
Yeah.
He was Kareem, and she was Karima, the younger sister. Karam
I
is
never
the,
knew that.
Karam is the
Sister,
Lebanese
brother.
pronunciation of Kareem.
Okay. All right. There you go.
So your Azar cousins are all related to their children, that 10 or 12 children they had.
Yeah.
She was popping them out.
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
10 or 12, oh, that's Father's home. I recognize these women, some of them. Wow.
I don't.
Now, one of the places where the Lebanese settled was the tenement district that was on the river, the Kennebec River. And these are the pictures of all the houses. This is very behind the railroad track. This is the river here, the Kennebec River.
Yeah.
And that is the Temple Street going down to the bridge. The bridge still exists. It was built in 1900, and it's called the 2-cent bridge.
Yeah.
Because the people paid a penny to go each way, and
Yeah.
the mill was the paper
the
mill
other
was on the
side.
other side, and the paper mill employed in those days 800 people. Almost all of them lived over on the side of the river, and they went across. These are all what the houses looked like. They were houses on this side of Temple Street were the houses, on that side was the industrial. There was a big woolen mill, which is a huge thing, and there were the Waterville Iron Works, which made all like the manhole covers, not just for Waterville, but for the whole state of Maine, and even exported them.
I didn't know about the ironworks.
Yeah, Waterville Iron Works,
I
yeah.
didn't know about that, I knew about the other mills.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
down there, and,
Yeah.
and the mill was, I got a picture of it someplace. It was a huge,
I was looking at the houses and the bridge, of course, I remember all that. The bridge, yeah. The others.
And there were gardens too there?
right? Yeah, some of them had gardens, they grew things like
Yeah.
banana and,
Yeah, all the stuff they could probably.
grape leaves,
That's why there's so many great places out in that area.
Yeah, there always were great.
This is what it looked like.
Right.
see how narrow it is, there, you couldn't turn around your car there.
No, it's very narrow, yeah. It's where they live.
Can you still go walk on the 2-cent bridge, or is it closed?
No,
No,
they
you can
used it
do
all the
it.
time,
You
they
can,
take
yeah.
their bicycle across it and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, you can, yeah. They've done work to it,
We
you
should
know,
go.
over the, yeah, we should.
go
we
over
should.
it. I don't think I've ever been on it. I mean,
That's-
I've
we
seen
should.
it 100
We
times,
should try,
but
we
yeah.
should go.
Well, we should
We
go.
could go into town.
Yes, I do walking tours of Waterville, I've done many of them at the senior college.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
They love those walking tours, you see, they
Yeah.
want Farmington. And I take them, and we have a class before, so they know. But the thing that always fascinates them is going on Front Street and seeing all the great leaves.
Look grape leaves, yeah,
They
there
wanted-
always,
oh,
there
they wanted-
always
they
were
wanted-
so many
I just
grape
say, "I
leaves
want
to
the
pick.
grape leaves."
Yeah.
And I told them, I mean, I don't, you probably don't remember, but that fence in back, my grandfather put that up, and that was all grape leaves.
Yeah, but
And
even
I
just
remember
walking to the
thinking,
church,
as a
there
kid,
were
There would
grape
be
leaves
grape leaves
everywhere.
all
Yeah.
around, all along where the Tesla
Yeah.
And those trees he planted, there were apple trees, pear trees, I remember an apricot tree, a peach tree.
Peaches.
But that died, I mean, no one knew how he did something to it every winter, so
Oh,
it was
wrapped it.
not, yeah, he wrapped
Yeah.
it up. And he died in 1954 in December, and it had beautiful fruit the next year, but Aunt Janet, Jumpy had no idea how he took care of that, and it died, he just got hit by frost.
Yeah.
When we were 55.
Yeah.
Huh. So amazing, isn't it, the things, but they, yeah,
But your grandfather,
Yeah.
he loved to plant even more than my grandfather.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
he had a, on Pool Street, I
A
think.
garden.
I remember going
Yeah,
up
he used to
there a couple
walk
of
up
times.
there all the time, take care of his garden, yeah.
He would have
Did he
pusa.
have another, he had a land there?
A
or-
little piece of land that they had there.
He always
used
had
to have
pusa, what else
it.
did I remember?
Yeah.
And,
My cousin
and,
Carol used to take care of
they
it.
always have beautiful pusa.
Yeah, Pusa, yeah. Yeah,
Our post is coming, we got some
but
out
he
there.
used to walk and walk and walk, and that should do, always did.
But you know
West
how
Pool
it was,
Street
what
was
happened?
not that close to, didn't it?
They would, each family would live in one room, and you would have like 3 or 4 families in these little
Yeah,
houses,
yeah.
because they were trying to save money, and they were very frugal. And in 1920, the 1920 census, my grandparents were living in this house with several other families. No, my great-grandparents were living in this house. It was eventually became single family, and then my grandparents were living here with my mother. So my mother was actually born in this house.
Oh, your mother was born in the house.
And they were sharing
right
this
before
house
the-
with Charles Stevens, a brother of
Right,
science.
right.
And next door was, my grandmother's, and in this house, my grandfather's brother Wilhelm was living with them. Plus they had some boarders, all of them, they had boarders, they naturally needed
Place to stay, because they were working at the, yeah,
I would charge you maybe $1 a week, and, when you're talking
$1
about
a
wages
week.
of 7 cents
I
an
know,
hour.
when your
$1 is
wages-
a lot of money.
it, yeah, for sure. It's amazing, kind of crazy. Wow.
And, I wanna say, and maybe, I don't know if my, Aunt Annie was born in this house too, she was after my mother. Or if she was born, around late 1920, my grandparents bought the house at the corner of Front, and Union Street.
Okay,
So they moved from here. And sometime in 21, my grandparents went there and they lived in the apartment above.
okay, yeah,
So my Aunt Annie could have been bought here if they,
it just depends, yeah. right.
if they were still there in June 21. Or they may have been, I don't know, here, if he was bought there or in the house
Right,
on, the corner of Union Street, Front Street. And in 1923, my grandparents bought the house at 12.
at 12, okay, that was in
1923.
1923, with the house you would
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
But it was bought in May, and my Aunt Tilly was bought in February, so she was probably born in the house on the corner of Front.
And, oh, okay.
And all the other children were born on in the house on 12
Wow.
Front Street, including your mother.
Yeah, yeah. You're Situ.
Yeah.
And Aunt Janet remembers the birth of Uncle John because they were trying to watch Really?
rats,
when he
yeah.
was being born, yeah.
Back then,
I've
Natalie,
heard that story.
everybody had their babies at home.
I think Uncle Elias was up there too.
Well, my mother,
Yeah.
when she got married, they lived in the apartment where your grandparents lived.
Oh, okay.
Your grandparents initially had lived, they had moved out of here. They were married before my grandparents, and they had moved out of Heather Falls, and were living in one of the Mitchell houses on Front Street.
Yeah.
And during Prohibition, your grandfather wanted to have liquor, and they were making alcohol, giving it away, or maybe selling it
I heard that, I heard that in the bathtub or something.
And they got turned in, and both of them were in prison, so all of your
Literally
your
got put in
father
prison.
and his brother and all of your
Yeah.
aunts went down to the prison and said, we want, mother has to make us some food, we're hungry. And they didn't know what to do because they never had a woman in prison before, so they sent her home.
They sent her home to take care of her children.
This
Can you
is your
imagine?
grandmother, Lottie?
Oh, Elias loves telling that.
Yeah.
And your father,
Yeah.
father didn't tell stories, but he liked their, oh, your Aunt Millie was so embarrassed. How can you tell them stuff?
Yeah, my father never would tell that story.
Had you heard about this? Did you
I
know about
have
this?
heard about that.
I
Wow.
didn't know that.
Elias loved
I
telling.
never heard that.
Uncle Elias just loved to tell.
Oh, Uncle
people.
Elias, well, yeah, that was his, that would have been his jam.
Yeah.
This,
But after that, they were kicked out. I think Rashida, that's when, that's the house where Rashida Mitchell, and the mother had died, and he married a woman who was a pretty bad.
were you just upstairs?
So she turned him in.
What?
After that,
Is Penelope sitting there?
my grandfather had them come live.
Yeah,
Not a pop.
she was a
They
nice
built.
person.
So they were there for 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
And then
Back
hooked
row
up
now,
with,
okay?
Jack
Went
would tell me
through a
how
lot.
your Aunt Amelia and her were trying to see what was going on
See what
through
was
the
happening there.
radiator grill.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that story too, but they're real, that's what happened,
Yeah.
yeah. Crazy, yeah.
One of the big things you should know is that my grandfather was one of the early union organizers.
Oh.
Huh.
And the union used to meet in secret in the basement of the house at 12 Union Street, and also in the Maroon House basement right across the street. from the
Seriously?
Catholic Church.
Oh, that basement, that was a scary basement to begin with. I can't imagine having a meeting down
A
there.
secret
Well,
meeting.
they didn't want anyone to know,
Yeah.
and they would put black, something to block out the window. So that's where,
That's how it works out down there.
Yeah, I remember.
an organizer, most of the organizer was George Java, who was the first cousin to our grandmother.
So they were all, what prompted them to organize? They were working at the mill and they wanted better conditions and things. That's so interesting.
Well, remember, there was no minimum, they worked minimum of 12, 14 hours a day, sometimes 16. My grandfather, he would work, and then he went to night school at Thomas College. I don't know if it was called Thomas back then, became Thomas, and it might have been Kite's Business College. And it was located on Main Street above one of those buildings. And he went to night classes to learn English.
Wow.
So he learned how to read and write English. He actually, because he was younger than the others, he had learned to read and write Arabic,
Wow.
which his older brother didn't.
Yeah.
And so he learned to read, and he became a citizen in 1932. He passed his citizenship.
Yeah.
So,
That's really amazing. It's a gorgeous picture.
scripture on
he didn't want, he was upset, he wanted his children to learn English.
Right.
My grandmother didn't speak English. She had to speak Arabic, and he would find them as they spoke in English at the dinner table with kids.
Yeah. Is it true? Well, I've kind of heard in our family that part of why you guys never really learned Arabic fluently was that, they didn't want you to
No.
speak it outside of the house, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it was
yeah.
sort of like,
Because they had problems.
right.
My mother-
Exactly.
My
yeah.
mother, I remember her kind of yelling at me like, why are you taking Arabic when I took Arabic in
Right.
college?
Yeah.
They would tell their secrets.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because
I
they
think
didn't
my
want us to know
mother-
in Arabic, but we would know foods and I knew how
Yeah.
to count, but that's it,
And
because
Masari.
all the foods.
We knew
but-
what money was.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
Masari.
because in those,
Yeah.
those days, there was still a lot of prejudice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would know all of them. They were
Yeah.
called Black Syrians.
Yeah.
Anglo, he bought his attention with the French because they were competing for the same jobs, all the
Yeah.
The French were the largest group, the Lebanese were the second one. There were 300 Lebanese people in Melbourne.
Wow.
I know I walked away for a couple minutes. Did you already talk about how our grandmother came here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. I'll
Yeah.
watch it later.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah.
She did, isn't that, I was gonna tell Natalie how she
Grandmothers
took
and
a,
grandfathers.
Natalie, so
Yeah.
my grandmother, when she took a horse and buggy when she got to get to Madison.
Do you know what a horse and buggy is? It's like a horse pulling. You do, Thomas? Yeah.
It's like a carriage kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Actually, if we take a ride to Smithfield, you'll see some. There's a big Amish community now.
There's not just Smithfield, they're in Mercer, New Sharon, they're all
Yeah.
over the
St.
place.
Albans, yeah.
They even have a place for them to park at the Dollar General at the corner of 2 and 27.
Wow.
And I've seen horse and buggy there,
Wow.
because I go there sometimes to shop, because it's much cheaper than Dave's.
Wow.
The schooling was difficult, especially for the oldest ones, who were the first ones to go. My mother had a terrible time in school, and she wanted to drop out when she turned 15. Because the oldest one, they would not learn even English before. they
Yeah,
went to
I can't
school.
even imagine
Yeah,
trying to go to school without knowing the language.
that's, yeah.
But the one memory I have, in 1941, they started, I think, this was World War I, a school and a church, the old church, I have pictures of the old church somewhere.
Where was this? Was this here?
That's a one.
It was in Waterville, not far.
We can take a ride there and see.
Is that where? Is that where? Is that what the house you were talking about?
Some of them, yeah. So this area that's
That's the one,
depicted
that's the
is
one
in
now.
Waterville.
World
The
War II.
street
Look at
that my Siptu
Yeah, and
The
that's,
sister.
yeah.
grew up in,
She went back to
and
work.
also Juju's mom.
She didn't
grew
work
up
after
in-
she got
is
married.
in
World War
Waterville.
II, they desperately need the workers, and she went back to
Yeah,
work
look
in
at that,
42.
they're leaving.
And there's our grandfather right there.
It's great that they get some of
That's
these
a great
pictures, because
picture.
back then it wasn't easy to get photos.
Wait, so I
It was
never even heard the
42, yeah.
names.
That's
So
where I was born. The old Thayer Hospital.
Huh.
Your
My uncle's
mom's-
restaurant.
Oh, Elms, yeah.
They didn't change the name to Hart, they did that in 48 or 49.
sleeping, honey?
Well,
Oh.
Wait, so whose name was Hard, H-A-R-D, or Hob?
Hart, yeah.
H-A-R-B.
H-A-R-D.
You know,
That
Freddie and
was-
Gladys?
That was the father of our grandmother.
Okay. And then
My grandmother
that
was
name
a
was changed to,
Uh,
or no, or there's
Joe,
still
because
Hard.
his first name was, he was Yusuf Ha, and then out of my passports, they would list like my grandmother of Sada, the Sada Youssef, so she was called. They decided that Sada had to be Sadie.
Right.
It's not, of course,
Right.
but everyone was Sada got the name Sadie, and
Yeah.
so they translated, she came to Ellis Island to Sadie Ha, Sadie Joseph,
Okay.
Sadie Joseph.
Sadie Joseph
Because their
because
father's
it was.
first name, because
Ah.
they did not use family names, surnames in the
Yes,
Ottoman
okay.
Empire.
I understood you were saying that, but I was misunderstanding how it translated to the names.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, her name's there in Alice's file.
So-
Harb means war in Arabic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how my father's father was James, the first son of me, James.
Yeah.
James, Inula, and James. And they knocked off the
Yeah.
James, and the Inula became Nichols.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
It's very arbitrary how they did it, wherever they came.
Yeah.
They had lists of some names and
Yeah.
some they didn't have, so.
it's just sort of, yeah,
Sad.
yeah, it's like when you think
Lost.
about sort of
Lost.
what happened
Family
to
names.
everyone when they came
Yeah,
into
yeah.
this country and then like losing the ability to trace your family
That's right,
in
that's
many
right.
instances.
Yeah, so it just would happen in a lot of the towns,
Yeah.
Greeks, and they would know. Some because they had passports, so it wasn't so bad. I mean, they had passports, so that's what the passport said.
Yeah.
Sada bin Youssef.
Right.
Uh,
Huh.
my grandmother's uncles, I think, in around 1950 went and changed their names legally to Ha, which it should
Oh,
be.
they
So
did.
some families did
Did
that.
that, okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of Harb, I got your text, we saw Freddie was up for a little bit, huh?
Yes,
I'm sorry I missed him.
Yes, it was just before you came.
Yeah, it must have been just before I got to Belgrade. We're still in
But
Boston.
he's supposed to be coming in August.
Good, good girls.
Eric, when did you put this together? That's amazing that you have all the
Fee and I put that
photos.
together in 2019. We were
Wow.
gonna surprise Aunt Janet when she came that summer, but of course she didn't. Unfortunately. But Aunt Janet never didn't want to know about her. I mean, she wasn't born there. But many of the Lebanese, it was an embarrassment. That was for them, because that was a slum. And,
Yeah.
Paul Mitchell, whose father grew up there, he had it torn down.
Huh,
Urban renewal, the lot torn down.
huh.
So Paul Mitchell has a mixed, there are people who love him for what he did and others who think he destroyed the water.
Interesting.
The
Yeah.
urban renewal.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just water, a lot of people who had urban renewal, because the idea, you tear everything down, but for Waterville and many other towns like that, you tore down the organic commercial connections.
Yeah.
It's our church that we grew up in got torn down because of urban renewal.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was like in junior high when it happened. Remember
God, I'm trying to
You're in
remember.
Long Meadow.
Remember we ended up at Cathedral High School going to mass for a couple
Oh,
years
yeah,
while they
that's
were
right.
building the new church
Yeah.
because it was an urban renewal project that tore down
Yeah.
The other one, huh?
the
It
original
was,
St. Anthony's.
I would say urban renewal.
Where was that? It was,
Was one of those ideas.
I remember
We have
though,
a thing, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah, right?
And
Yeah.
the intentions were good, but no one understood. I mean, like we now have Lincoln Center in New York, but that was there were thousands of apartments that they had to do a building was just demolished to build Lincoln
people are
Center.
displaced.
Where do all these people go live?
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Well, there's much more consciousness about it, but that went. But still, a lot of Waterville's history was destroyed during urban renewal. Temple Street went for 2 blocks, and all those stores were demolished. There was some big stores on those.
Temple Street.
Charles Street, Charles Street, you know, there was a street where that parking lot is, Charles Street, and they were like 3-story brick buildings, some of them were wood, but, you know, I knew kids who lived in those apartments, and the bottom, I don't know if you remember Charles Street, because you might have been
I
young.
don't.
But a lot of they were like apartment block, but most of them, they had like low, cut rate, what you would now call cut rate little stores, whereas Main Street had the more expensive
Right.
stores, yeah.
Huh, I don't remember that, but.
You know, that was demolished during urban renewal, so.
Before.
Yeah, I have memories of the old church. I can
So
almost
did-
see where it was.
I know, like, obviously your parents, you know, and Uncle Ives had their businesses, I know kind of the iterations of those, but did other, what, you know, I'm just curious, like, what did, I know Aunt Jan worked for the IRS for a long time, did my Auntie Celia ever have jobs?
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
she? Before
Grandmother
she-
Celia, she graduated from Waterloo High School in '47.
Yeah,
And she got a job at the Hathaway,
Hathaway, yeah.
which she did not like. And I vaguely
Hathaway
remember,
was
I mean,
Shirt factory.
I have memories of her because I was little, and I remember she would read to me stories every night. And when I went to grammar school, everyone thought I could read and write, and I did too, but really I had memorized
You
all
just-
those stories.
I remember my
So,
mother.
Isn't that
mother read to me.
Yeah.
She
She worked at Diamond Match. She said, I think for 2 weeks, but she said
she hated that.
she
yeah.
said she hated it because she was actually tacking
Coffee fresh.
match boxes with all the
oh,
matches.
wow. Like,
She
yeah,
said
it's
her brain
it's
was
tedious,
just
yeah.
was going to explode.
She didn't like the Hathaway, but she worked there at least a year and, or maybe a couple of, I had vague memories of like waiting for her and lunch, she'd come home for lunch and,
Okay.
because the Hathaway was right there behind the fence, now that's an apartment building.
She could sew. She taught us all to sew.
I would write, and,
That's
I
for sure.
thought she went in the late '90s, but I just saw her in the 1950 census. Both she and Aunt Tilly were living at home, and I thought Aunt Tilly never came back home.
Well, my mom had gone to Springfield. She was a waitress. She met my dad, and then she moved back to Waterville
Okay.
for a short period of time.
That was later. She went, I think maybe in '51 she went, and I can't remember. She went with one of the Joseph girls,
Oh,
and one of
yes.
the Thomas, one of the Thomas. And a
Thomases.
lot of the Thomases were living in Springfield, virtually all of the men, and then the Thomases were, Anna and Sadie were Thomases.
Was Mary Smuds, was she a
She's
Thomas?
She was a
She's a
Thomas.
That was a different, that Thomas was not related to the other Thomas.
Okay.
There were two separate Thomas families, but yeah, but they all knew each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she was a Thomas. She was Maroon Thomas.
For all their lives, really.
That was the Main Street Thomas and the Heather Falls Thomas. And their mother, what was her name? She was a good friend of Siptu's. Very
Excuse
sweet.
me.
I
Nice
wanna say her name
families.
was Jamila.
Very nice families, the
Jamila
Thomases.
Thomas, I'm almost sure that was her name. But yeah, I used to go down there, play with Paul Ferris. Who was my age. Actually, he was like 9 months younger than me, and his brother Bobby was 9 months older than me.
Huh. And I know Aunt Annie was in the service when she was really young,
Aunt
right?
Tilly, too.
Oh, Aunt Tilly too, I didn't know that. And Uncle Jumpy. Or no?
He was for,
Aunt Annie and Aunt Tilly, Aunt Annie, like my mother did, finish high school.
Yeah.
So Aunt Tilly was the first in the family. Oh, my grandfather was proud of her, I guess. So she graduated in 1941, and then the war broke out at least 6 months later. And then in '42, they said that they were going to enroll women. So Aunt Annie enrolled in the WACs, the Women's Army Corps, and Aunt Tilly enrolled in the WAVES.
Yeah.
So
Annie
they
did
were
really
literally
well.
in the first year.
Yeah. Aunt Annie was one of, she
Yeah.
was the first female sergeant
Wow.
in whatever,
Annie.
yeah, whatever group she was in. I mean, I remember her specifically telling me that. I know Aunt Tilly was, some type of, lobotomist. She worked with blood.
Remember that. Very
Nice pictures, Eric.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really
when she was
great.
working down in
I
Atlanta.
had a picture of
Yes.
them holding me, the baby.
Wow, baby Eric?
Tilly in her uniform. Janet holding me, where is, about the only picture hundreds of pictures that my mother had of them. I don't know who they are, Aunt Janet even couldn't identify them.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it got to the,
That's on Annie, wow.
that's on the minute.
Her bugle.
That's Aunt Annie,
Yeah,
yeah.
that for sure.
She was a bugler.
Yeah, yep, amazing. That's on.
Didn't I give you
too.
her clothes, Eric?
Yeah.
I have them all.
Her and Situito were best.
I haven't
Her
been
and-
able
her
to
and Situ, yeah.
donate them because
Oh, I thought maybe
the
the
COVID
historical.
came. But
Oh.
the Main State Museum is still not open. But I'm in touch with the woman who's in charge of history, so she knows I
That's
have
nice.
all.
Oh, okay,
Situation.
good.
My father.
Yeah,
I'm
I've seen that
interested
picture,
in
yeah.
Doing that, they also wanna collect stuff on the Hathaway. I don't know if you have anything, your mother, she hated working there, so she probably didn't.
I might
Any
actually.
souvenirs from it.
Actually, I think I might.
She didn't hate it as much as working for the match, actually.
No, actually, I think I do have an outfit of hers from that.
Remember?
Oh,
No, we were there.
Yeah.
they're looking for stuff.
Oh, are they?
Their new director is
Yeah,
interested, yeah.
and FIFA. Look how young. Parish council officers, look how young they are. Can you see? Look at, oh my gosh, I know, isn't that something?
Wow.
Oh, yeah, this is cool. Champion of coffee. Champion of coffee. That's what they call themselves?
Wow.
It's hard to
like
imagine,
this
like,
is so
joining the
funny.
service in 1942 back then, I mean, you
Wow,
didn't.
can't imagine. Yeah, I
Scary
know.
times.
I mean, you just, I can't imagine.
42, yeah.
Actually, I read a really good book called Sisters in Arms. And
No,
it's all-
that's really
it's all
cool.
about
That's something to be very proud of.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Like, they were not